For weeks, David pretended to sleep. But every night at 1:17 a.m., his wife slipped out of bed and walked straight into his younger brother's room. Tonight, he finally followed her, and what he discovered would change everything. Hello, friends. Welcome to our story. Before we start, please like this video and subscribe, and also tell us in the comments where you're watching from. 6 months ago, when Ryan showed up at their doorstep with a single duffel bag and tired eyes, David didn't hesitate to let him in. Ryan was his younger brother, once energetic, brave, the risk-taker of the family. But the man who stood before them that day looked hollow, like a lamp dimmed by storms no one else could see. Just need a place to reset for a while, Ryan had said. David didn't ask questions. Alina didn't either. In the first few weeks, David noticed something subtle but harmless. Ryan and Alina talked a lot. It started in the kitchen during coffee or while folding laundry. Small conversations, harmless jokes, quiet understanding. Alina was naturally warm and Ryan, though quiet, seemed at ease with her. David never paid much attention. Why would he? They were family. And Alina was the kind of woman who could make anyone feel comfortable. But 1 month ago, something changed. It started with the late-night whispers, then the quiet footsteps in the hall, the soft click of a door. At first, David didn't notice. He was exhausted from work, collapsing into bed every night and drifting into sleep quickly. But even through half-dreams, he started to sense Alina slipping out of the bedroom. He brushed it off. But then it kept happening, almost every night. And when David paid attention, really paid attention, he realized something chilling. Alina always walked toward Ryan's room. The first time he noticed clearly was on a stormy night. A quick flash of lightning lit up the hallway, and just for a second, David saw her silhouette standing outside Ryan's door before slipping inside. That image burned into his mind. Since then, he began pretending to sleep, his breathing steady, his eyes just barely shut. At exactly 1:17 a.m., the mattress dipped slightly. Alina gently lifted the blanket and she left the room. Every night, always heading to the same place, Ryan's room. At first, David tried to reason it away. Maybe Ryan couldn't sleep. Maybe Alina was checking on him. Maybe it was nothing. But then came the moments that shook him. Alina laughing softly at Ryan's jokes in the living room. Ryan looking at her with grateful eyes he never showed anyone else. The sudden silences whenever David entered a room. And worst of all, Alina looked tired every morning as if she'd only slept a few hours, while Ryan looked strangely calmer on some days. David tried to stay logical, but suspicion slowly crawled into his thoughts. His wife was leaving the bed every night, going to his brother's room, staying there for hours, and neither of them said a word about it. Tonight, David couldn't take it anymore. He waited until Alina slipped out of bed, then silently rose and followed her down the dark hallway. His heart hammered against his ribs, each beat louder than the last. He stopped outside Ryan's door. Alina was inside. So was Ryan. David placed his hand on the doorknob. Tonight, he would find out the truth. As David slowly turned the doorknob, he heard a sound from inside, a sound that made his blood run cold and forced him to confront a truth he never expected. David's fingers trembled against the cold metal of the doorknob. He didn't turn it, not yet. Instead, he leaned closer, his ear barely touching the wood. At first, there was silence. Then he heard it, a broken gasp, sharp, shaky, followed by another. Then a low, trembling voice. "Alina, I can't breathe." It was Ryan. David's heart slammed into his ribs. This wasn't whispering. This wasn't laughing. And it definitely wasn't anything David had imagined in his darkest moments. Ryan sounded terrified. And then came Alina's voice, calm, gentle, steady in a way David had never heard before. "It's okay, Ryan. I'm right here. Look at me. Follow my breathing, okay?" David's breath caught. He pushed the door open a tiny bit, just enough to see inside without being noticed. Ryan was sitting on the edge of the bed, his body hunched over, his hands shaking uncontrollably. Sweat drenched his hairline. His chest rose and fell too fast, like he was drowning in air. Alina knelt in front of him, her hands on his shoulders, guiding his breaths. Breathe in slowly, good. Now out, you're safe, you're home. You're not there anymore. Ryan squeezed his eyes shut, tears slipping out. I can't stop seeing it, he choked. The noise, the fire, I thought I was dead. Alina gently cupped his face. You survived, Ryan, you survived. Look at me. David felt his knees weaken. This wasn't an affair, this wasn't betrayal. Ryan was breaking. And Alina, she was holding him together piece by piece. David pressed a hand against the doorframe as guilt and confusion crashed over him like waves. For a month he had suspected the worst, while his brother had been battling something far darker, PTSD. It was written all over him, the trembling, the nightmares, the panic attacks happening in silence while the rest of the world slept. Ryan gasped again, struggling for air. Please, don't tell David, he'll think I'm pathetic, he'll think I'm weak. David's heart nearly stopped. Weak, pathetic. Is that what Ryan believed? Alina shook her head fiercely, tears filling her eyes. No, he wouldn't. Ryan, he loves you, you're his brother. Ryan shook harder. He's always been the strong one, the one everyone relied on. I can't let him see me like this. Please, Alina, don't tell him. David's chest tightened painfully. He never wanted Ryan to feel small, or broken, or judged. But his silence, his distance, his let Ryan handle it himself attitude, maybe that's exactly how Ryan interpreted it. Alina's voice softened. You're not weak, you're hurting, and I'm here because you shouldn't face this alone. Ryan clung to her hand like it was the only thing keeping him grounded. David stepped back, overwhelmed. The truth tore his suspicions apart and replaced them with something heavier, guilt, helplessness, and a brother's ache. He returned to his room with slow, shaky steps, his mind spinning. His wife wasn't sneaking around behind his back. She was saving his brother's life in the middle of the night, because Ryan was too scared to ask David for help. David sat on the edge of the bed, running a hand through his hair. Everything was clearer now, but one question still tore at him. Why didn't they trust him enough to tell him the truth? He wasn't angry at them anymore. He was angry at himself. Because somehow, without meaning to, he had become someone his brother feared disappointing. Tonight changed everything. David couldn't stay silent anymore. He had to talk to Alina. He had to help Ryan. He had to be the brother Ryan needed. As he stood up, a loud crash shook the hallway. David's heart stopped. He sprinted toward Ryan's room. When David bursts through the door, what he sees will leave him frozen. Because Ryan's panic attack has spiraled into something far more dangerous. David burst through Ryan's door so fast the handle slammed into the wall. His breath caught at the sight in front of him. The lamp had fallen off the nightstand. Glass scattered across the floor. Ryan was on his knees, his hands clawing at his chest as if trying to rip the panic out of himself. His face was pale, eyes wide with terror, his breath short and sharp, like his lungs were collapsing inside him. Alina was right beside him, trying to steady him, but even she looked shaken now. Ryan, she cried. Stay with me, but Ryan didn't hear her. He was staring at the corner of the room as if something monstrous stood there. His pupils were blown wide, tears streaming down his face. No, don't, please don't take me back. Don't, he screamed, shielding his head with his arms. David's heart shattered. This wasn't a panic attack anymore. This was a flashback. Ryan wasn't in the room with them. He was back overseas, reliving whatever nightmare broke him 6 months ago. Alina tried to hold him, but Ryan pushed back violently, his mind trapped in terror. His knees slipped on the broken glass. That's when David rushed forward. He didn't think. He didn't hesitate. He just grabbed Ryan and held him tight. Ryan, David yelled, his voice cracking. It's me, it's David. You're home, you're safe, do you hear me? You're with me. But Ryan fought against him, thrashing like a man drowning. Let go, he screamed. David held on tighter, tears burning his eyes. Ryan, please, it's me, look at me. Alina knelt beside them, her hand on Ryan's shoulder. Ryan, come back, focus on our voices. You're here. You're not in danger. It took nearly a full minute before Ryan's movement slowed. A minute that felt like a lifetime. Ryan collapsed against David, shaking violently. His breaths came in broken gasps, his body limp from exhaustion and fear. "David," Ryan whispered, finally recognizing his brother's voice. David swallowed hard. "I'm here. I've got you." Ryan's fingers clutched David's shirt like a scared child clinging to safety. "I'm sorry," Ryan sobbed. "I didn't want you to see me like this." David hugged him tighter. "You should have told me. You should have come to me." "I didn't want to be a burden," Ryan whispered, voice barely audible. "You've always been so strong, and I'm broken." David's breathing hitched. Broken? No. This was his brother, hurting, but not broken. Alina wiped tears from her cheeks. "Ryan, you're not broken. You're dealing with trauma. You survived something terrible." Ryan shook his head. "I keep hearing it. Every time I close my eyes, I see their faces. I hear the explosions. I smell the smoke. I can't escape it, David. I can't." David bit the inside of his cheek, fighting the urge to break down himself. He had no idea things were this bad. No idea his brother had been reliving hell every night under the same roof. "No more hiding," David said firmly. "Not from me. Not ever again." Ryan's shoulders slumped as if letting go of a weight he'd carried too long. "But David," Ryan whispered, "I didn't want you to think I was weak." David's voice trembled. "You are the strongest person I know." Silence fell over the room, heavy, emotional, raw. It was the first honest moment between them in months. Alina touched David's arm gently. "We need to talk, all of us, but not tonight. Ryan needs rest." Ryan nodded weakly, his body trembling less now but still fragile. David helped him back onto the bed, adjusting the blanket around him. He sat beside him until Ryan's breathing steadied and his eyes drifted shut in exhausted sleep. But David's heart was far from calm. Now that he knew the truth, he needed answers from Alina. Why had she kept this from him? Why had she carried this burden alone? And what else was she hiding? He walked toward the doorway, his thoughts storming. Alina followed him quietly. David turned to her, eyes filled with questions. And she finally whispered, "David, there's something else I need to tell you." Before David can respond, Alina reveals a secret she has been carrying for months, one even Ryan doesn't know, and it threatens to change everything once again. David stared at Alina, his breath caught somewhere between anger, fear, and heartbreak. He had just watched his brother fall apart, truly fall apart, in a way that shattered every suspicion David once had. Now Alina stood before him with eyes full of guilt and a secret she had been holding in for months. "Alina," David whispered, "what else is going on?" Alina closed the door softly so they wouldn't disturb Ryan, then leaned back against the wall. Her shoulders shook as she wiped her eyes, gathering the courage to speak. "David, I didn't tell you everything about Ryan's condition," she said quietly. David's stomach knotted. "What do you mean?" She took a trembling breath. "Ryan isn't just having nightmares. He isn't just remembering things from the war. He's getting worse." David's heart dropped. "Worse? How?" Alina's voice cracked. "The panic attacks aren't random. They're getting more frequent, more violent. Some nights he stops breathing for a moment. Some nights he collapses. Some nights he screams so loud I'm afraid the neighbors will hear." David felt the air leave his lungs. "And you've been dealing with this alone," he whispered. "I had to," Alina replied, tears rolling down her cheeks. "He begged me not to tell you. He said he didn't want you to think less of him." David clenched his jaw, torn between heartbreak and frustration. "He shouldn't have put that on you. He shouldn't have kept this from me." "He wasn't trying to hurt you," she said gently. "He was scared and ashamed." David looked away, running a hand through his hair. "I'm his brother. He should have come to me, not hide everything." Alina's eyes softened. "David, look at me." He turned to her. "You didn't see what he came back with," she whispered. "Ryan didn't just return from duty. He returned from a nightmare he's still trapped inside. He was lost, completely lost, and I didn't know what to do at first. I had to earn his trust before he let me help him even a little." David swallowed hard. "Why didn't you wake me? Why didn't you tell me what you were doing every night?" Alina looked down. "Because I thought you would wake up and worry, or panic, or confront him before he was ready. He's fragile, David. More fragile than you've ever seen him." Silence hung between them. David sank onto the couch in the hallway, burying his face in his hands. The truth was a mix of relief and devastation. He wasn't angry at Alina anymore. He wasn't even angry at Ryan. He was angry at himself. How could he have missed all the signs? Alina sat beside him slowly. "David, there's something else." His heart tightened again. "What?" She hesitated before speaking. "Ryan had a breakdown 3 months ago, worse than tonight. He was shaking uncontrollably. He said he didn't want to live anymore." David's head snapped up. "What?" he whispered, frozen. "He wasn't trying to hurt himself," Alina quickly clarified. "But he said he wished he didn't have to wake up anymore. He said he was tired of the nightmares, tired of feeling broken. He begged me not to tell you. He was terrified you'd send him away." David blinked hard, his chest aching. "Send him away? I would never." "I know," Alina said softly, "but he didn't. He's been drowning in fear and shame. That's why I stayed with him every night. That's why I didn't tell you. He trusted me with his worst moments, and I didn't know how to break that trust." David felt tears burning his eyes, something he rarely allowed himself to show. His brother, his family, and he had been asleep while Alina fought his battles alone. Alina touched his hand lightly. "We need to help him, David, but we need to do it carefully. He's fragile. If he thinks he's a burden, he might shut down or get worse." David nodded slowly. The weight of responsibility settled into his chest. He finally understood. He wasn't just fighting for answers now. He was fighting for Ryan's life. As David and Alina quietly returned to the bedroom, Ryan's voice suddenly breaks the silence, revealing that he has heard far more than they thought, and his reaction will send a chill through both of them. David and Alina quietly stepped back into the bedroom, both emotionally drained and overwhelmed by the weight of everything they had just faced. The hallway still echoed with memories of Ryan's panic, and the house felt heavier, almost as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. David sank onto the edge of the bed, elbows on his knees, staring at the floor. Alina sat beside him, her hand lightly touching his back. Neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was fragile. But then a soft voice drifted from the hallway. "David!" David's head snapped up. It was Ryan. He was standing at their bedroom door, sweaty, pale, still trembling, but awake, and clearly having heard more than either of them intended. Alina stood immediately. "Ryan, you should be lying down." Ryan shook his head. "I heard everything." He looked from Alina to David with eyes full of guilt, fear, and something even heavier, shame. David rose slowly, careful not to startle him. "Ryan, you need rest. We'll talk in the morning." "No," Ryan whispered. "I need to say this now." He stepped into the room, gripping the doorframe to steady himself. His breathing was still uneven, but the panic had faded into a deep, haunting sadness. "I didn't want you to see me like that," Ryan said, voice trembling. "I didn't want you to know how bad it's gotten." David felt his throat tighten. "Ryan, you shouldn't have hidden this. You don't have to face any of this alone." Ryan shook his head, tears forming. "You don't understand. When I came home 6 months ago, I was broken. Every night I'd wake up thinking I was still there. I heard things, saw things that weren't real. I kept telling myself I just needed time, that I could handle it on my own." His voice cracked. "But I couldn't." Alina wiped her eyes. Ryan continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "The first night it got really bad, I was screaming without realizing it. Alina came running. She sat with me for hours. She didn't judge me. She didn't look at me like I was weak." He swallowed hard. "I begged her not to tell you, David. I told her you'd look at me differently. You were always the one I admired, the one who kept everything under control. I didn't want you to think I'd failed." David stepped closer, eyes softening. "Ryan, you didn't fail. You survived something most people never will. You're stronger than you think." Ryan laughed weakly through tears. "Strong? You saw me tonight. I broke your lamp. I screamed like a child. I thought someone was trying to kill me." "That wasn't weakness," David said firmly. "That was trauma, and trauma isn't your fault." Ryan covered his face with both hands. "I wish I could turn it off. I wish I could sleep without waking up in terror. I wish I didn't have to be a burden to either of you." Alina moved forward, gently taking his hands away from his face. Ryan, listen to me. You're not a burden. Your family. A single tear slipped down Ryan's cheek. Alina, thank you. I don't know what I would have done without you. David felt something shift inside him. That sentence, though sincere, hurt in a way he didn't expect. For months, Alina had been the one comforting Ryan. She had been the one witnessing his nightmares, his panic, his breakdowns. And David had been outside that world, clueless and distant. But that was going to change now. He stepped forward and placed a hand on Ryan's shoulder. From now on, David said quietly, you don't hide anything from me. We face this together, all three of us. Ryan blinked, emotional. I'll try, I just don't want to disappoint you. You never could, David whispered. For the first time in months, Ryan managed a faint, broken smile. But the moment felt fragile, like peace balanced on a thread. And then Ryan's voice dropped again. There's something else I need to tell you both, something I've been hiding, something worse. David and Alina exchanged a tense, startled look. What do you mean? David asked. Ryan's hands shook again. I didn't come here 6 months ago just because I needed a break. He took a shaky breath. I came because someone from my unit didn't survive, and I think it's my fault. Alina covered her mouth in shock. David felt his pulse stop. Ryan finally reveals the truth about what happened overseas, and the dark secret he's been carrying may destroy him and tear their family apart. David felt the room tilt slightly, as if the air itself grew heavier. Ryan's voice trembled, his hands shaking as he stood in front of them, exhausted, broken, and now, confessing something far darker than either of them expected. Alina took a cautious step toward him. Ryan, what do you mean it's your fault? What happened? Ryan swallowed hard, eyes fixed on the floor. It was 6 months ago. The mission was simple, routine. We'd done dozens like it. But that night, his voice cracked. That night everything went wrong. David gently guided him to sit on the edge of the bed. Ryan sank down, elbows on his knees, gripping his hands so tightly his knuckles turned white. There were 4 of us, he continued. Me, Carter, Lewis, and our new guy, Mason. He was just 19, barely an adult, fresh out of training. Alina placed a comforting hand on Ryan's shoulder. Take your time, Ryan nodded, tears gathering in his eyes. We were supposed to check an abandoned building. It was quiet, too quiet. Carter said we should pull back, but his voice faltered. I insisted we move forward. I told them it was clear. I thought I heard something inside, someone calling for help. David felt his chest tighten. Ryan squeezed his eyes shut. It wasn't a person, it was a trap. The moment Mason went in, the explosion hit. So loud, so fast, I didn't even see it coming. Alina gasped softly, covering her mouth. Ryan's body shook. I watched him fall, I heard him scream. I saw, his voice broke completely. He buried his face in his hands, sobbing. I saw him die, David, right in front of me, because I gave the order, because I thought I knew better. David knelt in front of him. Ryan, you didn't know, it wasn't your fault. Ryan shook his head violently. It was my decision, my call, and he trusted me. Tears streamed down his face. Mason's last look, it was confusion, fear, and I swear he was looking right at me. Alina's eyes filled with tears. Ryan, you were doing your job. You were trying to help someone. But there wasn't anyone, Ryan whispered. That's the part that destroys me. I heard a voice that wasn't real, a voice that didn't exist. David froze. What do you mean, wasn't real? He asked. Ryan looked up slowly, eyes empty and haunted. David, I've been hearing things, even before the explosion, whispers, sounds. I thought I was just tired, I thought it was stress. But that night, I heard someone calling me by name. Alina stepped back, fear flickering across her face. Ryan, are you saying you had hallucinations? Before the mission, Ryan nodded shamefully. I never told my unit. I didn't want to be pulled out, I didn't want to fail. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. And because of that, Mason died. David felt a knot twist inside him, pain, fear, confusion all colliding at once. Ryan, he said softly, you're not responsible for a bomb planted by the enemy. That wasn't your doing. But I led him there, Ryan snapped, then immediately flinched. His voice softened. I led all of them in. And after the explosion, everything went black. He paused, breathing shakily. When I woke up, they told me I froze. They said I kept asking if I heard the voice again. They sent me home. They said I needed psychological evaluation. Alina's tears fell freely now. Ryan, why didn't you tell us? Ryan gave a broken laugh. Tell you what? That I'm losing my mind. That I'm hearing things that aren't real. That someone died because I couldn't tell what was in my head and what was outside it. David felt a cold chill run through him. Ryan, you're not losing your mind. You're traumatized. You have PTSD and you need real help. Ryan shook his head. I don't deserve help. David grabbed his shoulders firmly. Yes, you do, more than anyone. Silence filled the room again, heavy, heartbreaking. But then Ryan spoke again, his voice low. There's something else too, something I never told the military or you. David's breath caught. Alina froze. Ryan looked up, eyes full of dread. The voice, the one I heard that night, I've started hearing it again. Ryan reveals that the same mysterious voice from the night of the explosion is still haunting him, and tonight it said something terrifying. David felt the air freeze around him. Alina stopped breathing entirely. Ryan's voice, soft, shaken, almost distant, hung in the room like a shadow neither of them could escape. I heard it again, he whispered. The same voice from that night. David exchanged a worried look with Alina before sitting closer to Ryan. When did it happen? Ryan swallowed hard. Tonight, a few minutes before the panic attack got out of control. Alina sat beside him again, her hand trembling as she rested it on his shoulder. What? What did it say this time? Ryan's eyes drifted toward the floor, unfocused, as though he were listening to something none of them could hear. It said you can't escape what you left behind. A chill crept down David's spine. Alina's voice cracked. Ryan, that wasn't real. It was your mind replaying trauma. Ryan shook his head, eyes wide with a fear so deep it seemed to swallow him whole. No, Alina, it wasn't just inside my head. I heard it clearly, like someone was whispering right next to my ear. David's throat tightened with protective anger and rising fear. Ryan, listen to me. Trauma can mess with your senses. It can make memories feel real, like they're happening again. It doesn't mean something is actually there. Ryan looked up, expression hollow. Then why does it feel like something followed me home? Why do I feel like someone's watching me even when I'm awake? Alina's hand flew to her mouth. David leaned forward. Ryan, nothing followed you. You're safe here. You're home. But Ryan wasn't convinced. He shook his head again, his hands shaking. I used to think the nightmares were just dreams, but now the voice comes when I'm awake too. That statement hit David harder than anything else. Alina whispered, Ryan, have you heard voices during the day? Ryan hesitated, a hesitation full of shame. Then he nodded. Once last week. I was in the kitchen. I thought I heard someone whisper my name right behind me. I turned around, but no one was there. He looked down at his palms. I dropped a glass because I was so scared. David felt his heart crack open. His brother wasn't just battling memories. He was drowning in a mental war so deep he couldn't see where reality ended and trauma began. Alina spoke softly. Ryan, you need a doctor, a therapist, someone who can help you understand what's happening. But Ryan pulled back instantly. No, no hospitals, no evaluations. I'm not going back to any military doctors. David frowned. Why? Ryan's jaw clenched. Because the last time they evaluated me, they wanted to keep me for observation. They called me unstable. They said I wasn't fit for duty and that I might be a danger to myself. They treated me like I was broken beyond repair. Alina's voice softened. But that doesn't mean. I'm not going back, Ryan snapped, then immediately flinched at his own tone. I just want to feel normal again. I want the nightmares to stop. I want the voice to stop. His body began shaking again, this time not from panic, but from hopelessness. David placed his hands on Ryan's shoulders gently. You're not alone in this anymore. We're going to figure this out together. But you need help we can't give you alone. Ryan looked up, eyes glistening. I'm scared, David. What if I'm losing my mind? David shook his head firmly. You're not. You're traumatized. And you've been fighting it alone for too long. Alina nodded, wiping tears. We'll help you breathe again. We'll help you heal. For the first time, Ryan leaned into David's embrace willingly, trembling but less alone than before. But the moment of fragile peace shattered when Alina noticed something on Ryan's arm. She gently lifted his sleeve. Her breath caught. David's eyes widened. There were bruises, fresh ones, shaped like fingers, around Ryan's upper arm. "Ryan," Alina whispered, voice trembling. "Who grabbed you?" Ryan's lips parted, fear flooding his expression. "No one grabbed me," he whispered. "Not someone you can see." David's blood ran cold. Ryan finally reveals the terrifying event that caused the bruises, and his confession will shake David and Alina to their core. David felt a freezing sensation crawl up his spine. Alina's hand hovered over the bruises on Ryan's arm, her fingers trembling, afraid to touch him, afraid the truth might be worse than anything they imagined. "Ryan," she whispered, "what do you mean no one you can see grabbed you?" Ryan didn't answer immediately. He stared straight ahead, the color draining from his face. His breathing grew unsteady again, not out of panic, but something darker, something he'd been trying desperately to escape. David crouched in front of him, speaking gently. "Ryan, you're safe here. Tell us what happened." Ryan swallowed hard, his throat visibly tightening as he forced himself to speak. "It happened last night." Alina gasped softly. "Last night. But I was with you." "No," Ryan interrupted, shaking his head. "This was before you came to my room." David narrowed his eyes. "Tell us everything." Ryan's voice dropped, low and shaky. "I woke up from a nightmare. The same one as always, the explosion, the screams, but this time I couldn't move. My whole body was frozen, like something was holding me down." Alina's eyes widened. "Sleep paralysis." Ryan shook his head sharply. "It wasn't just paralysis. I felt something grab me, fingers pressing into my arm." He looked at the bruises, his voice cracking. "Hard, too hard. I tried to scream, but nothing came out." David felt his pulse racing, but he stayed calm for Ryan's sake. "Night terrors can do that. Your mind can trick your body." "No," Ryan said firmly. "This wasn't a dream, David." He leaned forward, voice trembling with conviction. "I felt breath on my neck." Alina flinched backward. David's brows drew together. "Ryan, I'm telling the truth," Ryan insisted. "I felt someone right behind me, breathing, whispering." He squeezed his eyes shut. "It said the same thing as tonight." Alina swallowed. "You can't escape what you left behind." Ryan nodded, trembling. "Yes." The room went silent, heavy and suffocating. After a moment, David exhaled slowly, grounding himself. "Ryan, trauma can create extremely vivid sensations. It can feel real, it can leave marks," but Ryan interrupted. "Then explain this." He lifted his shirt. David's breath hitched. Alina covered her mouth again. There were more bruises, fainter, older, but clearly shaped like fingers. Gripping, pulling, holding. "How does my mind do that?" Ryan demanded, tears filling his eyes again. "How does trauma leave marks like someone physically grabbed me?" Neither David nor Alina had an answer. David's mind raced. Could Ryan be harming himself unconsciously? Could he be thrashing in his sleep, grabbing his own arms without realizing it? But the marks, they didn't match the angle of his own hands. Alina spoke first. "Ryan, you didn't tell me about these." Ryan's expression collapsed. "Because I didn't want you to think I was crazy." David moved closer, lifting Ryan's chin gently. "You are not crazy," he said firmly. "You are dealing with something we need to understand, and I don't care how dark or confusing it gets, we are going to help you." Ryan wiped his tears. "What if it's too late? What if whatever happened over there followed me home? What if that explosion didn't just take Mason? What if it took something from me too?" Alina whispered. "Ryan, nothing followed you home." But even she didn't sound convinced. Ryan's voice dropped to a broken whisper. "Then why does it feel like something is waiting for me every night, watching me, touching me, whispering to me?" David took a deep breath. "Tomorrow we're taking you to a specialist, a real one, someone who can help." Ryan flinched. "David, no. This isn't optional," David said firmly. "You're not fighting this alone anymore." Ryan's breathing quickened, but he didn't argue. He looked exhausted mentally, physically, emotionally. He leaned back against the headboard, closing his eyes in defeat. Alina stood beside him. "Rest now. We're not leaving you alone tonight." Ryan nodded weakly. David turned off the bright overhead lights, leaving only the warm glow of the bedside lamp. The atmosphere softened, but the tension remained heavy. As Ryan drifted into an uneasy sleep, David and Alina sat on either side of him, watching over him like guardians. For the first time in months, Ryan wasn't alone. But as the room settled into silence, David noticed something. A faint movement near the doorway, a shadow. It passed quickly, too quickly, but it didn't match any of theirs. He blinked hard, staring at the spot. There was no one there, but the hairs on his arms stood straight up. As David tries to shake off what he saw, Ryan suddenly gasps awake, eyes wide in terror, and whispers four words that send chills through both of them. "It's in the house." Ryan's sudden gasp shattered the silence like glass. His body jerked upright, his chest rising and falling in panicked breaths. David and Alina scrambled closer, both gripping his arms, trying to steady him. "Ryan, Ryan, breathe, you're safe," David said urgently, but Ryan wasn't looking at them. His eyes were fixed on the doorway, wide, horrified, unblinking. "It's in the house," he whispered. Alina's blood ran cold. "What's in the house, Ryan?" Ryan's trembling finger lifted slowly, pointing toward the hallway. David turned immediately, his eyes scanning the shadows, but there was nothing. Just the dim, still corridor lit by a single small lamp. "Ryan," David said softly, "there's nothing there." Ryan shook his head violently. "No, no, I saw it. It's here. David, listen to me. I'm not imagining this. It's the same thing I felt behind me last night. The same presence. The same voice." Alina slipped her hand into his, her voice shaking. "Ryan, sometimes the mind plays tricks when you're scared." But Ryan pulled his hand back. "This wasn't a trick." His voice was desperate, pleading for them to believe. "When I woke up just now, something was standing in the doorway, watching me." David's jaw clenched. "Ryan, we're here. Nothing can hurt you." Ryan leaned forward, gripping David's wrist. "I'm not saying it will hurt me. I'm saying it's waiting for me, following me." Alina exchanged a terrified glance with David. David forced himself to stay calm. "Look, you just woke up from a nightmare. You're exhausted." "It's late." "No, David," Ryan snapped, then lowered his voice with a trembling breath. "You said you saw something too." David stiffened. He hadn't planned to tell anyone, not yet. Alina turned to him sharply. "David, what is he talking about?" David hesitated, then exhaled slowly. "When Ryan fell asleep, I thought I saw something move near the doorway." Alina's face drained of color. "What do you mean, something?" "I don't know," David admitted. "It was fast, like a shadow. I thought it was just my eyes playing tricks on me." Ryan gave a humorless, broken laugh. "That's exactly how it starts." Alina wrapped her arms around herself as a chill spread through the room. "David, should we check the house?" Ryan grabbed her wrist tightly. "No." The sharpness in his voice startled both of them. "Don't go out there," he whispered, terrified. "It's not normal. I know the difference between a nightmare and reality, Alina. This feels real." David sat beside him again. "Ryan, look at me. Nothing is in this house." But his voice shook slightly, because even he didn't fully believe his own words. Ryan's breathing slowed a little, but the fear in his eyes didn't fade. He rubbed his arms as if fighting off a cold. "Every night it gets worse. Every night it feels closer." His voice dropped to a whisper. "What if it wants something?" Alina shook her head firmly. "No, nothing wants anything from you. This is trauma. This is your mind reacting to what happened." Ryan stared down at his hands. "What if it's not?" he whispered. David frowned. "What are you saying?" Ryan lifted his eyes, dark, hollow, filled with fear. "What if it followed me because I survived and Mason didn't? What if it's punishment? What if it's guilt taking form?" Alina gasped. "Ryan, no." David grabbed his shoulders. "Stop. You are not being punished. You survived something horrible. That's all." But Ryan shook his head slowly. "You don't understand, David." He paused, swallowing hard. "Mason wasn't the only one who died that night." David's heart dropped. What? Ryan's voice cracked. Someone else was trapped in the building too. Someone we didn't report. Someone we weren't supposed to encounter. Elena's eyes widened. Who? Ryan's breathing quickened again. I never saw their face. I only heard them screaming before the explosion. And now, every night I hear the scream again. David's skin prickled with fear. Elena grabbed Ryan's arm. Ryan, who was it? Ryan slowly looked up. I think it's the same voice that whispers to me. Silence fell, heavy, suffocating, terrifying. And then Ryan said the words that froze both David and Elena to the core. It knows my name. Before David or Elena can respond, Ryan suddenly goes still, staring past them with wide, terrified eyes, as if something is standing right behind them. Ryan's gasp echoed so sharply through the room that David and Elena jumped. His eyes were wide, terrified, fixed on the doorway as if something unspeakable stood right behind them. David turned instantly, scanning every shadow, every corner. Nothing, just the dim hall, but Ryan's trembling didn't stop. It's here, he whispered. It followed me home. Elena gently moved in front of him, cupping his face. Ryan, look at me, you're safe, we're safe. Nothing is here. But the fear in Ryan's eyes said he didn't believe her. David knelt beside him. Ryan, breathe, slow, focus on me. It took nearly a minute, but gradually, Ryan's breathing steadied. His gaze shifted from the door to his brother. He blinked, confusion replacing panic. I thought I saw something, he whispered. I thought it was standing right there. Elena brushed his hair back, her touch soft. It's your mind replaying trauma. You've carried this alone for so long that fear became real. Ryan closed his eyes, tears slipping out. I'm tired, so tired of being scared. David took his hand firmly. Then let us carry the fear with you. You're not alone anymore. Ryan looked between them, his brother and the woman who had spent months comforting him in silence. A slow, fragile calm washed over his face. Elena stood. Ryan, everything you've seen, everything you've heard, the voice, the shadows, it's all the aftermath of trauma. The mind protects itself in strange ways when it's hurt. David added, we're going to help you heal the right way. For the first time that night, Ryan didn't argue. He nodded slowly. I think I'm ready. Elena exhaled in relief. We'll get you to a real specialist, someone who understands combat trauma, someone who can help you work through the guilt. Ryan looked down, voice soft. The guilt, it's what hurts the most. David squeezed his shoulder. Listen to me. Mason's death wasn't your fault. The explosion wasn't your fault. The screams weren't your fault. You made a call in a split second during chaos. Anyone would have done the same. Elena nodded. And the voices, the shadows, they're symptoms, Ryan, not spirits, not punishment. Ryan finally let out a trembling breath. All this time I thought I was losing my mind. You're not, David said, voice thick with emotion. You're wounded, but wounds can heal. A tiny, broken smile formed on Ryan's lips, his first real smile in months. Elena helped him lie back down. This time he didn't shake, didn't panic. He closed his eyes, exhausted but calmer, finally allowing himself to rest with both of them beside him. The night passed slowly. No whispers, no shadows. Just the steady breathing of three people who had been through too much pain and were now finding their way out of it. By sunrise, David and Elena had a plan. They would get Ryan into therapy. They would support him every step. They would rebuild their home as a safe place, not one filled with secrets or fear. Ryan woke mid-morning, groggy but peaceful. He whispered, "Thank you for not giving up on me." David hugged him. "Never." Elena smiled softly. "Your family, you stay with us." Ryan's eyes filled, not with fear this time, but with something new, hope. And for the first time in 6 months, the house felt warm again, whole again, safe again. The shadows were gone. The voice was gone. The healing had finally begun. A month passed and the house felt completely different. The fear, tension, and sleepless nights were replaced with peace, laughter, and normal life. Ryan, with proper therapy and support, showed strong improvement. His nightmares became rare, the panic attacks almost disappeared, and the haunted look in his eyes faded day by day. He often joined David and Elena for dinner, smiling more, talking more, and finally feeling safe again. David was proud of him, Elena was relieved, and Ryan finally believed he wasn't alone anymore. For the first time since he came home, he felt hopeful, light, safe, and truly part of the family again. They were all living happily, and Ryan was recovering more with every passing day. I hope you enjoyed this video and the story we shared today. If you liked it, please make sure to hit the like button. It really helps the channel grow. And if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next story. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.